The old Victorian sat on the corner of a wrinkly street like a long-forgotten relic, each creak of its timbers echoing tales no one dared tell aloud. The Lewis family had inherited it, a tangled legacy wrapped in dust and shadows. But when Margaret Lewis stepped across the threshold, she felt the weight of something dark, something alive in the weary silence. She was a woman worn by life, late 30s, deep-set eyes that held stories. As she unpacked boxes in the dim light, her heart thrummed to the rhythm of whispered rumors dancing around Dallas. Folks said the house held its breath at night, and she couldn't shake the feeling that it watched her with murky eyes, judging. Settling in was a chore. Each corner of the home held remnants of its past, a namesake that echoed in the rustling wallpaper, the lingering scent of mildew and memories long buried. There were tales of tragedy, of lost lives and broken hearts that rippled through the town like an unholy wind. Margaret felt the townsfolk's cold glances, their murmurs growing hushed as she walked by, as if they were keeping secrets she had yet to decipher. One fateful night, after tucking her children in, Margaret wandered down the dimly lit halls. With each step, the floorboards groaned, and the shadows seemed to thicken. She was drawn to a door at the end of a narrow corridor that wasn't marked in the old blueprints. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a hidden room, shrouded in dust and secrets, filled with air, thick enough to slice with a knife. Inside, moth-eaten furniture sat draped in white sheets, like sleeping souls waiting to awaken. It was then she heard it, a low, unsettling hum, a whisper that played in the echoes of the gloom. A feeling of dread swelled within her, tightening like a noose. Flickering candlelight revealed walls lined with inexplicable markings, shapes that twisted and writhed in the dimness. As she explored, her fingers brushed over the surfaces, the dust swirling up like ghosts stirred from slumber. And there, on an oak writing desk, she spotted a diary, its cover cracked and leathery, the kind that whispered of untold sagas. She hesitated, the air growing heavy with anticipation. Beneath her fingertips, the pages felt alive. That night, the diary drew her deeper into its enchantment. The words began to fill themselves, ink swirling under the moonlight, forming sentences that called her name. Names she knew, names of her ancestors entwined in shadows, struggles, and a legacy soaked in sorrow. As the clock struck midnight, she found another line, a warning written in a rush, splattered like blood. Beware what lies beneath the floorboards. The walls groaned as though sighing, and a chill danced down her spine. Margaret's unease surged. She felt a sinister energy, an ache buried deep within the very bones of the house. What could it mean? What horror lurked beneath the layers of silence she had yet to uncover? It dawned on her then. Perhaps some secrets were never meant to resurface, and perhaps in the whispers of the night something slumbered that did not wish to stay hidden for long. Margaret stood in the dim light of the hidden room, her heart pounding as she stared at the diary on the oak desk. The words seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Outside, the wind howled against the old Victorian's windows, but inside, all was still. She felt trapped in a moment where time froze, her breath painting clouds in the cold air. Suddenly, a voice broke the stillness, startling her. "Mom, where are you?" It was Jacob, her eldest, voice filled with sleep and confusion. Just a boy of 12, scruffy hair and wide eyes that held remnants of childhood dreams. "Down here, Jacob," she called, trying to steady her voice. He appeared in the doorway, wrapped in his blanket. "What are you doing? It's late." "Nothing important, just looking around." "Is it the house? Is it haunted?" He looked both intrigued and scared. "Haunted? No, it's just an old place with stories." She forced a laugh, but it felt tight in her throat. "Stories freak me out. The neighbors say it's cursed." Margaret knelt beside him. "It's just gossip, honey. It's just an old house." "Okay." Jacob fidgeted, glancing at the diary. "What's that?" "Just a book." She waved it away. "Let's head back for now." "No, I want to see it." Before she could respond, Jacob stepped forward, reaching for the diary. Margaret's heart raced. "No, Jacob, don't touch that." He froze. "Why not?" I'm just I'm not sure it's safe. Safe? Mom, it's just a book. He huffed, crossing his arms. Let's leave it, all right? We'll check it out in the morning. He looked at her. You're scared. No, I'm not. She forced the words, but doubts pricked at her. The air thickened with tension. Jacob studied her, and behind him the shadows whispered. She could almost hear them laughing. Then let me see it, he insisted. I said no. Her voice raised, and it felt sharp. Jacob stepped back, hurt, shining in his eyes. Fine. Let's just go to bed, she said, but her heart pounded harder. He turned and walked away, quiet footsteps fading. Margaret watched him go, guilt pooling inside her. She looked back at the diary, its presence heavy and unyielding. Hours passed. The house felt more alive, the walls breathing around her. The wind crawled through the cracks, and she finally brushed the dust off the diary. She opened it again, and the ink crawled across the pages like it wanted to escape. Words came into focus. Names, dates, events, losses. Her family's faces turned to shadows, drifting in and out of her mind. She read on until her eyes caught a particular phrase. They took him beneath the floor. The floorboards creaked loudly, jolting her. Margaret tilted her head. She leaned closer to the text, the warning gnawing at her. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from upstairs. Jacob! She jumped up, fear slicing through her. She sprinted toward the stairs, heart racing. Jacob! She called again, climbing the steps 2 at a time. The hallway was dark. She reached the door to his room and pushed it open. The sight hit her like a punch. Jacob stood frozen in the middle of the room, wide-eyed, staring at the floor. Jacob! What happened? He pointed down. Mom, the floor. It's different. Panic gripped her. What do you mean? I don't know, but it looks strange, moving. Her heart hammered. She approached, looking down. The floorboards twitched like something alive was trapped beneath. Get back, she ordered, pulling him behind her. A low grinding sound came from below. Mom, I'm scared. Stay close, she whispered. Before she could react, one of the floorboards cracked open. A hand shot out, pale and skeletal. Margaret gasped, stumbling back as it clawed at the opening. Mom! Jacob screamed. The hand grasped the floor, pulling the rest of the body with it. A figure emerged, eyes wild, hair tangled and dirty, mouth twisted in silent screams. Help me! It croaked. Margaret's breath hitched. What? Who are you? Jacob clutched her arm, trembling. Mom, let's go! But something about the figure held her. It was desperate. Please, the figure rasped, staggering to its feet. You have to help me. The voice struck a chord. It sounded familiar. Mom, we need to go. Jacob pulled harder. Now. The figure's eyes met hers. Recognition washed over her. Margaret, you must listen. They will come for you too. Another figure joined the first, someone more menacing, lurking in the shadows, lips curling into a malevolent smile. Run! Margaret shouted, shoving Jacob toward the hallway. But as they turned to flee, the door slammed shut. The sounds of laughter echoed in the darkness. Margaret's heart sank. Mom, what do we do? The looming darkness whispered back, and it felt like the walls themselves were tightening around them. Get away! She yelled, but the shadows pulled at her, holding her in place. Run! Margaret commanded, pushing Jacob toward the window, but the darkness shifted, blocking their escape. Fear chilled her blood. No, not like this. The angry shadows lunged, and she felt their grasp. Mom! Jacob cried, panic lacing his voice. Hold on! She fought against the shadows, desperate, but they pulled her down. Margaret! The anguished cry reached her ears as the darkness closed in. Then everything went black, and just like that, silence reigned. Chapter 2. The Pull of Shadows. Darkness enveloped them. Margaret couldn't breathe. The cold gripped her like iron chains. Mom! Jacob's voice cut through the silence, sharp as glass. Hold on! She pushed against the shadows, feeling their cold fingers claw at her. Help me! Jacob cried, eyes wide with fear. Don't look away! Stay close! She shouted, but she could barely hear herself through the whispers. The figure loomed closer, its face twisted in anguish. They're coming for you! Margaret felt heat rise in her chest, a sudden rush of anger and fear. Who? Who are you? The figure shifted, its mouth moving, but no sound came. It was like staring into a nightmare. Mom! Jacob pressed against her, trembling. Jacob, listen to me, she said, cutting through the darkness. We need to stay together, no matter what. Then, without warning, the second figure lunged forward. Margaret's heart raced. She shoved Jacob back. Run! She commanded, pushing him toward the window again. But the shadows shifted, closing in, trapping them in the room. Mom! Jacob yelled, struggling against her. Now, Jacob! The figure that had been quiet began to laugh, a low, rumbling sound that filled the air, chilling them both. Help! Jacob shouted again. Get away from us! Margaret didn't know what else to say. The first figure's wild eyes bore into her. You have to go. They will take him. Take who? She shouted, fear growing larger than her voice. She felt a surge of panic. The door slammed open, and light poured in, vanishing the shadows like smoke. Margaret turned, breathless. There was a woman standing in the doorway. Get out! She shouted. Now! Who are you? Margaret stammered. But as the light spread, the woman's face twisted with recognition. Mom? Jacob whispered, eyes wide. Margaret's breath caught. What do you mean, Jacob? The woman's eyes darkened. I didn't know. Jacob, you... Mom! Margaret turned to Jacob, confusion flooding her mind. What's going on? This is your mother, the woman yelled, stepping forward. You left her behind. Left her? What are you talking about? Margaret's voice rose higher. No! No! Jacob stepped forward, shaking his head. That's not true. That's not possible. Let's go! Margaret screamed, grabbing Jacob's arm, but the woman stepped in their way. Her eyes held desperation. You can't escape what's in the house. Mom, she's crazy, Jacob yelled. Margaret felt her heart race. We need to go. You're already bound to the house, the woman yelled, her voice echoing. Your father, the curse. Margaret froze. Curse? That's why they're here. They want you. The bloodline. Shut up, Jacob cried. You're not our mother. No. The woman rushed toward them, but as she reached out, the figures rose from the shadows. The skeletal hand reached out, grasping at the air, pulling itself from the floorboard again. Jacob, back! Margaret pulled him away just as the figure lunged, but it stumbled forward into the light. Help me! It rasped, clawing the ground for balance. Margaret backed up. Get in front of me, Jacob! No, I won't let you take him, the woman shouted. The figures swarmed and the air grew thick. The room felt smaller, as if the walls were closing in. Mom! Jacob yelled, eyes darting around, searching for an escape. The woman's face turned wild. You can't handle it. You don't know what they want. Tell me, Margaret shouted, fear mixing with anger. What do they want? They want you to pay, to reclaim your family. Behind her, shadows whispered louder. Mom, we need to go. Jacob pulled at her arm. No. The woman fell to her knees. You think you can just leave? You're part of this. The ground shook beneath them, and the air felt electric. What are you saying? Margaret shouted, struggling to hold on to reality. Suddenly, the shadows broke. A vision ripped through her mind. Faces appeared, her ancestors, twisted in pain, surrounded by darkness, screaming, Mom, please! Jacob tugged harder. Then the truth slammed into her. You're part of it too. She turned to the woman. You brought this upon us. No! I wanted to protect you. But the words didn't fill Margaret with relief. They felt like chains. Help me! The figure screamed again, echoing through the room. Stop! Margaret shouted at them. The shadows surged, trying to pull her down. Margaret! Jacob's voice broke through the chaos, desperate. Stay away from him! She yelled. The woman struggled to her feet, determination shining through. We have to break the curse. It's not just them. It's your destiny. Mom! Jacob's eyes were wide, filled with confusion. What are we going to do? I don't know, Margaret shouted, heart racing. She kicked at the darkness. Just then, a loud, ear-splitting crash echoed through the house. The ceiling above them began to crack. Get out, the woman cried, now, before it's too late. But the walls trembled, shadows tightening around them, pulling them down toward the dark void. Mom! Jacob shouted. And then everything went white. A blinding flash split the room in two, the haunting figures vanished, the woman fell, and Margaret felt herself thrown back. "Jacob!" she screamed, but when she reached for him, he was gone. The room plunged into darkness again, and the remnants of the light faded away. "Jacob!" silence answered, thick and suffocating. "Where are you?" she whispered, terror clawing at her throat. She was alone. A laugh echoed through the dark, and then the shadows whispered again. The house held its breath. Chapter 3. The Silence in the Shadows. Darkness surrounded Margaret. She stood still, breath hitching in her throat. Panic surged as she felt the cold press against her skin. She yelled, voice echoing in the void. No answer, just silence. "Jacob!" she called again, desperation clawing at her throat. A rustle came from behind her. "Mom!" She spun around, hope flaring in her chest. "Jacob!" A shadow formed, growing larger. The dimness pulsed, shifting like it held a life of its own. "Mom, where are you?" The voice was small, scared. "I'm right here." Margaret stood, heart racing. "Help me!" came the voice again, pouring out of the darkness. "Where are you?" Fear tightened around her. "Mom, I don't know, I can't see. Stay where you are, please." She took a step forward, reaching out. The darkness thickened, wrapping around her hands. "Jacob!" But then from the shadows something slithered forward. A spot of light flared just for a moment. Then it was gone, swallowed whole again. "Jacob, answer me!" Margaret shouted. "Mom!" The panic in his voice sent a chill through her. "Here I come." She pushed through the darkness, feeling a shift beneath her feet. "Mom! Jacob!" She lunged forward, her heart racing. Then she stumbled, falling to her knees. "Help!" she gasped. The ground shook. "No!" she screamed, forcing herself up. "Mom!" His voice echoed, breaking with fear. The shadows clawed at her, dragging her down. She fought back. "No! Get away!" "Mom!" Jacob's cries rang louder. Suddenly, a beam of light burst from above. It sliced through the dark, illuminating the air. "There!" Margaret shouted, spotting Jacob standing in a corner, his expression wild and terrified. "Mom!" he yelled again, reaching for her as the darkness writhed, desperate to reclaim what it had lost. "Stay where you are!" She pushed through the shadows, each step weighed down by dread. The light flickered. "Don't look away!" Jacob yelled. "Shut your eyes!" she barked back, racing towards him. "Mom, hurry!" She lunged, grabbing his arm just as the shadows lunged. They both stumbled back into the light, breathless. "Mom, what happened?" His eyes were wide, flickering with terror. "I don't know," she said, still feeling the grip of darkness around her. "But we need to leave now." "I'm scared." They stood together, breathing hard. "Me too." The walls around them shook. The overhead light buzzed, threatening to go out. "We can't stay here," she said, heart racing. "We have to find a way out." "Okay." As they turned to leave, the air grew cold. "Mom, look out!" Jacob shouted, raising his hand. Margaret spun around. The figures emerged from the shadows again. She stood frozen. Their eyes glinted, full of malice. "Hide!" she yelled. They bolted to a narrow doorway at the far end. The figures followed, disjointed and swift. "Where do we go?" Jacob cried. "I don't know." "Help!" "Shut up!" she hissed. They ran through the narrow hallway. The wooden floors creaked underfoot. In the distance, laughter echoed, a haunting sound that chilled her bones. "Mom!" "Keep moving." They dashed into a room at the end of the corridor. Margaret slammed the door behind them, pressing her shoulder against it. "Is it locked?" Jacob asked, eyes wide. "I think so." "No, they'll get us." "Shh!" She glanced around the room. It was empty except for an old mirror hanging crooked on the wall. Dust filled the air as she took a step forward. "Mom? We're okay for now," she said, but panic gnawed at her gut. "Can they get in?" "Let's just wait, okay?" A loud bang shook the door. "Mom, they're coming!" "Be quiet!" The shadows beat against the door, the sound relentless and steady. "Help! Someone help us!" Jacob screamed. "Jacob, stop!" But the door splintered. "Mom, let's go!" The mirror rattled, shaking in place, and then a scream. "Mom!" The mirror shattered, sending jagged pieces flying everywhere. A figure emerged from the wreckage, an old woman with hollow eyes and a twisted grin. "Now you've done it!" the old woman hissed. Margaret stepped back, pulling Jacob with her. "What do you want?" "The truth." "What truth?" "They're coming for you both." "Who?" A cloud of shadows spilled from the broken glass, swirling around the room. "Your family's past. You can't escape." "No!" Jacob shouted, clutching Margaret's arm. The shadows lunged at the figure. She laughed, a high-pitched cackle that took over the air. "Follow your destiny." Suddenly, a dark shape broke free from the shadows. It lunged at them, grasping for Jacob. "Jacob! Run!" Margaret shoved Jacob forward. "Mom! Go!" The figure stretched farther, its eyes locked on Jacob, a grim hunger driving it. "Leave him alone!" Margaret screamed, lunging to grab him. But the shadows tugged at her, pulling her back. "Mom, help me!" She fought against the grip of darkness, feeling it wrap around her waist, dragging her down. Just then, a loud crack echoed through the room. "No!" the old woman shrieked. The entire room shook. "Hold on, Jacob!" But then the ceiling buckled and chunks began tumbling down. The walls shuddered, and Margaret felt overwhelmed by debris. "Mom, please!" Jacob cried, his voice cracking. "Jacob!" She fought and fought, pushing against the shadows, holding her down. But pieces of wood fell, separating her from him. "Mom!" Jacob's face was full of terror. "Jacob!" Darkness filled her vision again, consuming all light. And then silence returned. Voices echoed in her ears, distant whispers. "Mom! Jacob!" But that voice slipped away, blending into the shadows. Desperation surged in her chest. "John!" she called out, but she was alone again. Darkness pressed down as the laughter grew louder, and then it all faded to black. Chapter 4. The Weight of Shadows. The silence felt heavy. Margaret blinked, disoriented. Darkness enveloped her. The only sound was the distant echo of her own heartbeat. She struggled to stand, arms trembling. "Jacob!" she shouted into the void. Nothing, just more silence. "Jacob! Mom!" His voice came from nowhere, faint yet clear. "Where are you?" Panic crept into her chest. "Right here!" "What do you mean?" She turned, searching for him. Her eyes strained in the dark. "Mom, I can't see you. Where are you?" "Over here." She stumbled toward the sound. Each step felt like wading through thick water. "Stay near me." "Where are we?" he asked, his voice closer now. "I don't know." She reached out her hand. "Can you see anything?" "Just darkness." "Keep talking." "Okay. I'm scared." "Me too." Then a shimmer broke through the dark, a line of light cutting through the black. Hope surged for a moment. "Jacob, I see something." "Where?" "There," she pointed. "Let's go." They moved toward it, hearts racing. The light grew larger, revealing a door. "Mom, hurry!" Jacob's voice trembled. She grasped the door handle and turned it. The door swung open, revealing a dimly lit room bathed in a strange glow. "Whoa!" Jacob stepped inside. "Stay close," Margaret urged, stepping into the room. The air smelled damp and stale. Shadows danced along the walls. "Did we go somewhere different?" Jacob asked, eyes wide. "I think so." They moved deeper into the room. A table sat in the center, covered in dusty objects. "What's on the table?" Jacob whispered. "Looks like old stuff," she said. "We need to find a way out." As she approached the table, the light flickered. The objects shifted, showing their wear. A framed photo caught her eye. "Mom, look!" Jacob pointed. Margaret lifted the frame. In the picture, a family smiled back at her. She recognized some faces. "These look like us." "Mom, who are they?" "I don't know," she said, unsettled. "But we need to keep moving." Suddenly the room shook. "Mom!" Jacob cried, stumbling back. "Grab my hand!" she yelled, clutching his wrist. The walls groaned as shadows pressed in. The picture fell from her hands as she pulled him toward the door. "Get out!" They rushed back through the door. The hallway was the same, dark and threatening. "Which way?" Jacob shouted. "Just follow me!" They ran, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the silence. "Mom! Stay close!" But then Jacob stumbled. "I can't." Margaret turned. "What's wrong?" I can't breathe, he gasped, clutching his chest. A figure appeared at the end of the hallway, shrouded in shadows. Jacob! Mom! I can't! No! She rushed forward. The figure lunged, tangled in shadows. Margaret barely dodged it, but it grabbed Jacob's arm. Jacob! She screamed. Help! The figure twisted, pulling Jacob into the dark. Let him go! Margaret lunged, but the shadows wrapped around her ankles, holding her back. Mom! Jacob's voice was laced with fear. Hold on! She fought against the grip, her heart racing. The figure hissed, pulling Jacob closer. Run! Margaret shouted, but the shadows were too strong. Get out of here, Jacob! No, I won't leave you! Jacob screamed. She felt the tug of darkness ready to pull her under. Go! But he turned, desperation in his eyes. Then another loud bang echoed. The walls shook violently. Mom! Jacob's face went pale. Jacob! The figure paused, its grip on Jacob releasing just for a moment. Margaret lunged toward them. Grab him! Jacob reached out. I can't! He yelled, terror rising in his voice. A flicker of light burst from the cracks in the walls. Then, all at once, the figure howled, a guttural sound that echoed. It lunged again. Mom! The shadows swirled violently, crashing into the walls. No! She yelled, sprinting forward. She grasped Jacob just as the figure fell back, shrieking in the light. In that instance, something shifted. The shadows hesitated as a new figure emerged from the remnants of darkness. Jacob! Margaret screamed as she stumbled. Mom! Jacob's eyes darted between the figures. The new figure stepped forward. It was a woman, but her face was smooth, hollow. Let him go! Margaret shouted. Help me! The spectre cried, her voice pained. Who are you? But then the woman slipped, revealing herself as a reflection of Margaret. What? Jacob said, eyes wide. Margaret, you're here! The spectre reached a hand toward her. You, just stay back. Margaret stepped away. I didn't want this for you. The woman's voice trembled. Why do you look like me? I'm you, she said, pain evident in her eyes, or the part of you that's trapped in this house. No, Jacob yelled, stepping forward. Jacob, don't! Margaret shouted, pulling him back. Let me help her. Help who? Your mother, she needs you. Don't trust her, Margaret warned, eyes narrowed. The spectre grinned, but it was a smile full of shadows. Jacob, listen, Margaret cried, her heart racing. Just then, the main door shuddered. A crash echoed through the hallway. Get out! The spectre yelled, but she didn't move. Run! Margaret urged Jacob, but he hesitated, still staring at the woman. Jacob, please! Suddenly the darkness enveloped them. The spectre screamed, lurching. Shadows swirled, consuming her. Mom! Jacob screamed. Go! Margaret yelled, fighting against the tide. As shadows pulled at her, Jacob turned and ran. Jacob! But as he fled, another scream cut through the air. Margaret felt the world drop beneath her. She gasped, light flashed, and then everything turned black again. In the void there were echoes. Jacob! The voice was far away. Help me! Then silence. A flash of pain shot through Margaret, and she felt the weight of darkness clutch at her again. Jacob! And then came the laughter. It was familiar, deep, and relentless. Margaret's breath caught, and suddenly the walls quaked again. Now what? She shouted into the void, but no answer came. She was alone. Again. Chapter 5. In the shadow of truth. Silence pressed in around Margaret, thick and suffocating. She stood, heart pounding, eyes straining in the dark. The laughter still echoed in her ears, haunting and cruel. Jacob! She called into the void, her voice trembling. Mom! His voice came as a whisper, distant and tangled in despair. Where are you? Panic surged. I don't know. Keep talking, she urged, searching the darkness, desperate for any sign of him. Okay, I'm scared. Me too. The emptiness around her felt menacing. Then she caught a glimmer of light, small but bright, and it was growing. Jacob, I see something. Where? There, she pointed. A door. They hurried toward it, hope sparking anew. As they approached, the door creaked open, revealing a wide room flooded with light. Dust motes danced in the air, illuminating the chaos left behind. Whoa! Jacob stepped in, eyes wide. "Stay next to me," Margaret commanded, scanning the space. Old furniture lay strewn about, broken and warped. A battered couch sagged in the middle of the room. "We can't linger. We need to find a way out." "Do you think it's safe in here?" Jacob asked, looking around nervously. "Better than staying out there," she replied, moving deeper into the room. Suddenly, an overwhelming sense of dread filled the air. "Mom!" Jacob's voice wavered, tension coiling between them. Just then, the light flickered. Margaret held her breath. "It's too quiet," she whispered. A loud crash broke through the stillness, shaking the walls. "What was that?" Jacob asked, his eyes wide with fear. "I don't know," she said, gripping his arm. "We should check it out." Carefully, they moved toward the source of the sound, hearts racing. Margaret shot a worried glance back at Jacob, who looked pale. "Stay close, please," she urged. "I will," he replied, though doubt flickered in his eyes. As they turned the corner, they found a shattered mirror on the ground. "Look!" Jacob pointed to a reflection that shimmered oddly, showing a blurred image of a figure standing behind them. "Get back!" Margaret pulled Jacob close. The figure shifted, its smile unsettling. "Join me," it whispered, voice ethereal. "Who are you?" Margaret demanded, but her question hung in the air, unanswered. Suddenly, the figure lunged, gripping Margaret's arm with a force beyond her comprehension. She gasped, trying to pull away. "Jacob! Let her go!" Jacob shouted, panic flaring in his voice. The figure's eyes glowed, revealing true malevolence. "You can't leave! You belong here!" it hissed, tightening its grip. "Mom!" Jacob cried out, lunging forward. But before he reached his mother, another form emerged from the shadows beside Margaret. It was a woman, fear etched into her features. "No, don't let it take you." "Who are you?" Margaret asked, breathless. "I'm you," the woman said, voice filled with pain. "I've been trapped here." "No!" The figure holding Margaret cut her off. "You don't need to listen to her. She's nothing. Why are you doing this?" Margaret struggled against the grip, eyes darting between the two. "Don't believe her," the figure hissed, venomous. "You have a choice. Stay with me or you can go, but you will lose everything." "Mom!" Jacob reached for Margaret's hand, terror in his voice. "Get away from him!" she shouted, making one last effort to wrest herself free. "Let us go." "Choose, Margaret. You can save him," the woman urged, her eyes pleading. "Save him? From what?" Margaret cried, feeling the tension gnawing away at her. The room seemed to tremble. Shadows crept forward, whispering promises, lies that dug under her skin. "Choose!" the spectre pressed. "Margaret!" Jacob yelled. "Don't listen to them!" "Choose!" the figure growled, its face morphing with rage. "Mom!" Jacob shouted, desperate. The shadows writhed, and Margaret felt them encroaching. Time slowed as she pieced together the reality of her choices. "Stay or leave," she echoed, heart racing. Suddenly the true horror hit her. "Is this what you wanted?" She spat at the figure. "To trap me here?" It laughed, cruel and dark. "I can show you power. I can give you what you desire, but only if you accept. I don't want anything from you." "Mom!" Jacob's voice cut through, frantic. The shadows surged, a living thing, ready to engulf them both. As the fear and confusion escalated within her, something cracked. With clarity came an impulse stronger than fear. "Jacob, trust me!" She yanked her arm away, wrenching free. "Run!" She grabbed Jacob's hand and bolted. "No!" The figure screamed, but they surged forward, charging toward the door. "Don't look back!" Margaret shouted, dragging Jacob behind her. They reached the door and burst through it, colliding into a space that felt strangely familiar. "What is this?" Jacob looked around, bewildered. "Mom?" The air carried a chilling whisper. Margaret turned, heart dropping as she faced a terrifying vision. The hallway stretched out before them, and two figures appeared, identical to her and Jacob, faces twisted in darkness. "Mom!" Jacob's voice trembled. "No!" Margaret shouted, stepping protectively in front of him. The figures approached, mirroring them. "You must accept," the spectre of Margaret said, her eyes hollow but eager. "Or else what?" Margaret spat. "Or else you'll lose him forever." "Mom, what does that mean?" Jacob asked, fear chasing his every word. Jacob, don't listen! But the connection between the two that appeared, the doubt and the fear, clung to the air. Join us! The spectre taunted, reaching out a hand. I won't! You're a lie! Margaret shouted, stepping back. But as she did, darkness rolled in again, threatening to swallow them. Mom! Jacob shrieked as he stumbled. Get back! She turned, and in that moment, the shadows surged, ripping through the air. Margaret! A new voice echoed, sharp and commanding. The woman, the real version of her, suddenly materialized behind them. You cannot let the shadows win. Margaret felt a jolt, confusion stunning her. Why are you here? Because the darkness has been stirring, the spectre said, gazing with pleading intensity. And you're the key to awakening it. What? Choose! The spectre of Margaret shouted, and the walls trembled violently. The overwhelming tension was too much. What truth was unraveling before her? The shadows whispered, urging her to join them, to embrace fate. The room exploded with noise, laughter filling the air, dark and cold. Mum, we have to go! Now! Jacob screamed. Margaret's heart raced. In that moment, she felt torn between the two realities, the choices, the spectre of her past, and the real danger of the shadows. Get out of here! The real woman shrieked. You can't stay! And then it happened. The shadows closed in, figures merging in a chaotic dance, reaching for both of them where they stood. No! Margaret cried, her voice battling against the surge. Then a scream, Jacob's, and everything shattered. Everything went black, and the weight of the truth hung heavy in the air. Chapter 6. The Abyss of Choices. Darkness pressed in close. Margaret gasped as the void swallowed her and Jacob. She reached for him, heart pounding. Jacob! She shouted. Mom, where are you? His voice came from the dark, shaky and small. I'm here, just hold on! Light flickered to life, bright and blinding. It cut through the dark. Mom! There! She saw Jacob, fear etched on his face, eyes searching. Come on! She ran toward him, unwilling to let the darkness pull them apart again. As she reached for him, the light glowed brighter. What's happening? Jacob asked, fear creeping back into his voice. I don't know. The walls shift around them. The light surged and shadows lurked at its edges, flickering like flames. Stay close. Margaret grabbed Jacob's hand, pulling him with urgency. Where do we go? He asked, wide-eyed. Anywhere but here. They moved through the chaotic light. The room pulsed around them, an endless hallway stretching on. Mom, I'm scared. Me too, but we can't stop. We have to keep moving. Just follow me. The air thickened. Laughter echoed, chilling them both. Mom, run! They sprinted forward, feet pounding against the ground. Help! A voice cried out, the sound bouncing off the walls. Did you hear that? Jacob paused, eyes wide. Keep going! Another figure emerged from the shadows. Help! Please! Margaret hesitated, but Jacob pulled her closer. No, we can't stop. It sounds like someone's in trouble. No, I don't want to get caught. But instinct kicked in. Just one look, she shouted, turning back. The figure staggered toward them. It was a man, clothes tattered and skin pale. You have to help me. Margaret stepped forward, ready to reach out. What's wrong? Don't! It's a trick. Jacob pulled her back. The man lunged, hands grasping. They're coming, you have to help. No! Jacob screamed. The moment felt stretched, frozen in time. Don't touch him, Margaret shouted, stepping in front of Jacob. The man's eyes were wild, desperation pouring out of him. Help me, they want you. Who? Margaret demanded, voice rising. I don't know, just trust me. Jacob, we're leaving. The man's lips twisted into a grin, and the darkness behind him grew. Mom, look out! Jacob yelled. The shadows surged forward, reaching for both of them. Run! Margaret shouted again, pulling Jacob into a sprint. They dashed down the corridor, hearts racing. Where to? Jacob gasped, dragging his feet. Follow me! Just follow! Voices surrounded them, murmurs wrapping around their ears. Stay. With us. The walls twisted, shadows closing in. Mum! Jacob stumbled again. Stay focused! The light dimmed. Suddenly a loud crash echoed. A door burst open. Go! Get in! They dove through, landing hard on the floor. Where are we? Jacob panted. It was another room, filled with dust and old furniture. Is it safe? I don't know. They huddled together. Maybe we can find a way out. A low growl rumbled outside the door. Mom, they're coming. Margaret's heart raced. We need to find something, anything. Quick! Jacob searched under a couch, pulling out an old lamp. What about this? Does it even work? Look! He shook it. No bulb. The growl grew louder. The door rattled. Mom, we can't stay here. Look around. In the corner, she saw a box. She rushed over, lifting it. Help me! Jacob joined in. Inside were tools, old and rusted. Maybe we can use these. He pulled out a hammer, its weight reassuring. Footsteps approached. Mum, hurry! They turned, panic flooding their eyes. Then an explosion of shadows broke through the door, a wave of darkness crashing inside. Get back! Margaret shouted, swinging the hammer. The darkness recoiled. Mom! Jacob screamed. Keep back! She swung again, hitting nothing but shadow. No! The man's voice from before echoed in her mind. They won't stop! Then what do we do? Jacob shouted, and suddenly the figure, the shadow of a woman, emerged from the mass. Her eyes gleamed with malice, without a shred of humanity. Let them have the boy, she screeched. Mom! Jacob shrieked. The figure lunged, and Margaret swung the hammer again, trying to create space. But it was like hitting smoke. I won't let you take him, Margaret yelled. The shadows pulsed, flowing toward Jacob, wrapping around him. Mom, help! Jacob! She lunged forward, but the darkness held her back. Join us! The spectre laughed, its voice rising in a chilling chorus. Mom! With a primal scream, Margaret thrust the hammer hard against a nearby wall. The force sent a tremor through the space. The shadows flinched, pulling back slightly. Light seeped through the cracks in the wall. Not the wall! The darkness, too! Jacob shouted, eyes pleading. Focus, I can break it! Then she noticed the flickering light in the corner of the room. It was a lamp, a dim bulb, still hanging from the ceiling. Light! She shouted, racing toward it. If we can turn it on. Jacob struggled against the pull. Mom, please! With shaking hands, she reached up to twist the bulb. But as she did, the shadows surged, and a scream erupted from Jacob. No! Margaret yanked the lamp down. The moment it shattered on the floor, the light exploded, bathing the room in brilliant brightness. Shadows recoiled, hissing and screeching, but in that instant, everything froze. The door slammed shut, isolating them from the outside world. Mom, what's happening? Jacob's eyes widened in realization. Jacob, I don't know. Then Margaret noticed it. Jacob's face, the way it twisted with fear, and something else, something darker. What are you? I'm sorry, Jacob mumbled, his voice thinning. No, Margaret cried, stepping back. The darkness shifted, gathering around him. What's going on? And just like that, the shadows surged again, pulling Jacob into the dark. Margaret screamed, rushing forward. Jacob! But the shadows surrounded him, blocking her from reaching. Mom! Jacob cried, echoing into the void. No! Help! Margaret grabbed the hammer, desperation fueling her. You won't take him. But suddenly the shadows burst forth. Join us! They howled, merging into a single towering figure. And from the mass a voice spoke, deep and menacing. That bond was always meant to be broken. The darkness engulfed Jacob. Don't! Everything went black. Margaret stood alone. The shadows whispered, echoing through the darkness. Choose. And everything shattered once more. Chapter 7. The Reckoning. The cold darkness surrounded Margaret. She could still hear Jacob's voice fading as the shadows pulled him in. Jacob! She screamed, desperation cutting through her like a knife. Mom! His voice echoed from the depths of the void. Stay with me! But the darkness swallowed her words. She felt the air thicken around her. She was alone. Help! Silence filled the space. It wrapped around her, heavy and stifling. Jacob! She cried, her throat raw. This isn't real! A whisper slithered through the air. Who's there? Margaret said, voice shaky. No one wants to help you, the voice taunted. Show yourself. A figure stepped forward, a woman with an unsettling smile. It was the same hollow-eyed spectre from before. They'll never come back, the figure hissed. I won't listen to you. Your boy is lost. You are too. Margaret took a step back. No! The spectre laughed softly, the sound eerie. You can't escape your fate, Margaret. A flickering light shone from the corner. Margaret's hope sparked. Jacob! Mom! A weak voice came from the shadows. Hold on! She pushed her way through the thick air, chasing the light. Where are you? Here! His voice came closer. Margaret reached out. The light surrounded her, illuminating the space. Mom! Jacob stood at the edge, tears streaming down his face. Margaret rushed toward him, arms opening wide. I'm coming! But as she lunged, the light shattered. No! Margaret fell forward. The shadows erupted, enveloping her like a blanket. Jacob! She shouted, struggling against the darkness. Hands gripped her shoulders. Stop! You can't fight it! She gasped. What do you mean? The spectre stood before her again, eyes glimmering. Join us. It's easier that way. No, I won't. Join us, and you will find peace. Peace? Margaret spat, filled with rage. But you don't have to suffer. Shut up, she yelled, shaking free. The spectre's expression twisted. You think you can save him? Yes. The shadows lurked closer, a terrible whispering echoing. Margaret! A familiar voice broke through. Jacob! But it wasn't his face that emerged. It was her husband, John. You can't bring him back. What? John? He isn't the same. Don't say that. Come with me. No, she said, stepping back. You're lying. Am I? He asked, dark amusement lining his words. Help us! Let me guide you! The shadows wailed, shivering with restless energy. Liar! She yelled, heart pounding. Join us! The spectre stepped forward, eerily calm. No! Mom! Jacob screamed from the edge, his voice filled with pain. Stay back! She cried, panic rising. Something shifted in the shadows. The air grew heavier. Jacob, do you trust me? She shouted, keeping her eyes on the spectre. Please, Mom, I'm scared. Do it! Mom, But the darkness pulled at him again, ready to consume him. Get away! She lunged for him. You have to choose! John screeched, rage and pain mixing. Choose what? Join us! You will lose everything otherwise! No! At that moment, the ground shook violently. The room buckled and shadows spiraled around, a whirlwind of terror. Help me! Jacob cried, tears streaming. Not like this! Margaret screamed, reaching out her hand toward him. Mom! Just then the center of the room erupted into a blinding light. Stop! The spectre screeched as it recoiled from the light. Everyone shielded their eyes. The brightness swallowed everything. Jacob! Margaret yelled over the chaos. But in the glare, something changed. Join me, John whispered again, a sinister emphasis in his voice. The illusion shimmered and rippled. Margaret blinked, her heart racing. No, you're not real. But then shadows wrapped their tendrils around her. Margaret, his voice softened. You can let go. Let go. Panic seized her. Yes, it's the only way. No, I won't. The light flared, pushing the shadows back. In that moment of clarity, she saw something behind John. It was Jacob's face, filled with confusion and fear. Mom, get him! Jacob, go, get away! But as Margaret lunged again, the spectre raised a hand. The glow shattered like glass. No! She fell to her knees, scraping against the floor. The light dimmed and faded back to darkness. Stop this! It has to be done! Done! You're lying! But John's eyes glinted with truth. Mom! Jacob's voice was small. She turned to him. I won't let them take you. Mom! But just like that, the shadows wrapped around him, pulling him deeper. Let him go! Margaret lunged forward, but John blocked her path. You will see soon, he said darkly, a smile creeping on his face. No! And suddenly, with one swift motion, John raised his arm, dark energy dancing at his fingertips. Let him go! Margaret screamed, panic clawing through her. Join us! Choose! Margaret gasped as she felt the pull. No! She swung her arm, feeling the weight of shadows holding her back. Then came a sudden explosion of light. The roof cracked, revealing a burning sky above. What? Something larger than life stepped through, a massive figure silhouetted against the light. Let them be. The shadows hissed and dissolved, retreating into dark corners. "Mom," Jacob whispered, eyes wide. "Stay close," she cried, determination fueling her. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face eerily similar to John's, but much older. "Who are you?" Margaret demanded. "I am the reason you are trapped," it stated, voice deep and resonant. "What do you mean?" The spectre laughed, eyes sparkling with malice. "Choose or lose everything." "No!" Margaret held Jacob's hand tighter. "You can't have us." The figure grinned, shadows swirling around it again, and just like that, darkness enveloped them once more. "Mom!" Jacob screamed, the sound growing fainter. "Fight!" Margaret shouted. But everything turned black, and they were lost again, and the darkness whispered softly, "Choose." Margaret stood in darkness, the looming shadows pressing down on her. She felt the panic rise, the familiar fear knotting in her chest. Jacob's voice echoed, fading. "Mom!" "Jacob!" She screamed, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I'm coming!" But the shadows surged, pulling tighter, each tendril whispering dark promises. The light that had shone moments earlier flickered. The darkness laughed. "You think you can save him? He belongs to us now." "No!" Margaret shouted, her voice fierce. "He does not!" With every ounce of strength, she yanked against the grasping shadows, feeling the pull of her love for Jacob cutting through the haze. It was a desperate bid, but she wouldn't lose him. Not now. Suddenly, light tore through the suffocating darkness, illuminating the space. A figure emerged, tall and radiant, bursting with energy. "Let him go!" the figure commanded, voice strong and protective. Margaret's heart raced. "Who are you?" "I am a part of you, the strength you've buried deep." The darkness shrieked, recoiling as the light intensified. "You cannot win, Margaret." But she felt the strength building within her, reminding her of all the moments of love and hope. "Get away from us." The shadows flared, and then began to dissipate, retreating as the light filled the room. Jacob stood at the edge, fearful but hopeful. "Mom, please." He reached for her, tears streaming. "Jacob, I'm here." She ran towards him, her heart breaking with the love she felt. As the shadows shrank, the angry spectre lunged for them. Margaret raised her hand, feeling the power she thought she had lost. "You will not take my son!" In a flash, she thrust her arm forward, releasing all the pent-up strength. The light exploded, illuminating every corner of the room. The spectre screamed, engulfed in the brightness, and with it the shadows shattered like glass, dispersing into the air. "Jacob, come to me." He dashed forward, and they embraced, the overwhelming warmth wrapping around them like a safety blanket. The room shifted. The echoes of the whispers faded, replaced by a soothing silence. "We did it, Mom," Jacob breathed, looking up at her. "We did it together," she replied, eyes shining. But the air still felt electric, charged with uncertainty. "Is it really over?" As if in response, the ground trembled. A new voice resonated, deeper and commanding, echoing through every crevice. "You may have defeated the shadows, but the house holds more secrets." Margaret glanced around. "What do you mean? What more could there be?" Jacob trembled beside her. "Ah, my children," the voice laughed, dark and enthralling. "You don't know what lies beneath. This property holds a truth you both must unearth." Margaret's heart sank. "No, I won't go back into the dark." But Jacob's gaze was fixed on the floor beneath them. "Mom, look." Visibly, the wooden floorboards began to shift, revealing a glimmering outline, light pulsating from beneath. "Don't approach it," she warned, anxiety flooding her senses. But the shadows were gone, and curiosity seeped into Jacob's eyes. "But what if it's something good?" Margaret hesitated. "What if it's another trap? I need to know." Jacob took a step forward, drawn irresistibly toward the shimmering light. "Jacob, wait." As he neared, the pulsating began to quicken, sending waves of energy through the air. The house vibrated around them, the walls sighing as if alive. "What is happening?" Margaret shouted, fear gripping her heart as she reached for him. "Maybe it's the answer, Mom." "No, don't touch it." But before she could stop him, Jacob knelt down, fingers brushing against the source of the glow. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted, engulfing him completely. "Jacob!" Margaret screamed. She lunged forward, the radiance pulling her in. "Help! I can see!" Jacob's voice echoed, enchanting yet distant. It's beautiful." Margaret felt the walls close around her, the familiar fear returning. "Jacob, get away from it!" But his laughter rang out, joyous and wild. "Come on! It's calling us!" As she reached for him, she felt the familiar power of the darkness suddenly coiling around her, pulling her in the opposite direction. "No! No!" She screamed against the tide, feeling her resolve break. One moment she saw Jacob, fully illuminated, shimmering like a star. The next, it was as if the world unspooled before her, and then everything went white. As the brightness enveloped her, she realized she could either let the light guide her or succumb to the shadows. Jacob! In a heart-stopping moment, Margaret made her choice. "Together forever!" she cried out, reaching deep into herself, pushing through the brightness. "Together!" Jacob's voice echoed back, fierce and unwavering. The light exploded around them, glowing with brilliance, and just like that, they were pulled into the glowing source beneath the floor. A moment of silence, and then darkness fell once more. The house stilled, the shadows gone, but faint laughter echoed in the air, whispered secrets flitting between the walls. What had they awakened? The answer fluttered just out of reach. What lay beyond the light? And something deep within began to stir again, calling them home. As the laughter faded, the lingering silence hung heavy, leaving only mystery in its wake. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories we have. Press that like button now to feed the algorithm. This is the moment to show your support. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this ending, and don't wait another second to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know this story. Your support means everything to us.